When you think about relationships and the energy we put into them, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that caring deeply and showing constant attention is the way to keep someone close. From a young age, we're taught that love means effort, persistence, and sometimes sacrifice. But what often gets overlooked is the power of emotional detachment, not in the sense of indifference or cruelty, but as a tool for self-respect, clarity, and balance. Emotional detachment is the practice of stepping back from the need to control someone else's feelings, reactions, or choices, and instead focusing on your own well-being. It might seem counterintuitive, but when you stop obsessing over someone, when you stop trying to manage their behavior or constantly seek their approval, you create a space in which desire and curiosity can naturally arise. It is within this space that real attraction begins to flourish, because human beings are wired to respond to scarcity, to the mystery of what is not constantly available. When you are always present, always giving, always caring in excess, the other person may take your attention for granted without even realizing it. They do not need to chase you because you are always there, and constant availability can create complacency. But when you choose to step back, when you allow your energy to be independent of someone else's reactions, a subtle shift occurs. Suddenly, they are confronted with the reality that your attention is not guaranteed, that your presence is not automatic, and that your life exists fully outside of them. This shift is not about playing games. It is about living authentically and demonstrating that your emotional state does not depend entirely on someone else's choices. Detachment signals that you are whole on your own, that your happiness is not contingent upon someone else noticing or reciprocating your care, and this alone is profoundly attractive. The psychology behind this phenomenon is rooted in our innate human responses to autonomy and freedom. People are naturally drawn to what feels independent, what cannot be forced or owned. When you let go of over-investing, you are no longer available for manipulation, no longer giving your energy to meet demands that do not serve you. Instead, you create a magnetic energy that others notice, sometimes without even consciously realizing why. This is the paradox of letting go. By removing the pressure to control or influence, you create the conditions in which genuine interest and desire emerge. Emotional detachment does not mean you stop caring entirely. It means that your caring is balanced, measured, and no longer a tool for validation. You still show kindness and respect, but your actions are grounded in choice rather than compulsion. This choice sends a powerful message that your love and attention are valuable, and that you will not allow yourself to be diminished or exhausted in the pursuit of someone else's affection. In relationships, this often leads to a natural realignment of dynamics. Someone who may have taken your attention for granted begins to realize that it is not limitless, that it is not something to be assumed. This can trigger reflection, self-awareness, and a newfound respect for your boundaries. Detachment can also protect you from the emotional roller coaster that comes with chasing or overcaring. When you are emotionally tethered to someone's approval, their moods, or their availability, you give away your power and your sense of stability. By stepping back, you reclaim your emotional autonomy, which not only benefits your mental health, but also makes your interactions with others far more genuine. People are drawn to those who have control over their own emotions because it signals maturity, strength, and reliability. It also prevents the cycle of chasing and withdrawing, which often creates tension, anxiety, and confusion. By letting go, you break this cycle and establish a healthier rhythm in relationships, one where both parties have space to be themselves while still feeling connected. Moreover, emotional detachment encourages self-reflection and self-awareness. When you stop overcaring, you begin to notice patterns in your own behavior, triggers that lead to overinvestment, and areas where insecurity may be driving your actions. This self-knowledge is invaluable because it allows you to make choices from a place of clarity rather than fear or neediness. It also strengthens your boundaries, as you learn to distinguish between genuine affection and attention-seeking behavior that might drain you. Another important aspect is that detachment fosters authenticity. When you are no longer constantly trying to elicit a response or manipulate the dynamics of a relationship, your actions become aligned with your true intentions and values. You are no longer performing for someone else's approval, but instead living in alignment with who you are and what you want. This authenticity is inherently attractive because it communicates confidence, honesty, and stability. The other person begins to see you as a complete individual, someone whose life is rich and fulfilling independently of their presence. And this naturally inspires interest and respect. Detachment also teaches patience and restraint, two qualities that are often underestimated in their power. When you stop reacting impulsively to every perceived slight, every moment of uncertainty, or every emotional fluctuation, you give the other person room to step forward on their own. This creates a natural balance in effort, where desire is no longer manufactured through pressure but emerges organically through curiosity and genuine investment. Over time, practicing emotional detachment builds resilience. You become less susceptible to emotional manipulation, less likely to compromise your self-worth, and more capable of maintaining equilibrium in the face of uncertainty. This resilience allows you to navigate relationships with clarity and confidence, rather than anxiety and overdependence. You begin to notice the difference between attachment and affection, between needing someone for validation and choosing to be with someone out of genuine connection. In essence, detachment transforms the way you engage with others, making your presence more compelling, your energy more magnetic, and your emotional state more stable. It changes the dynamic from one of pursuit and desperation to one of mutual respect, curiosity, and balance. True attraction is rarely about grand gestures or constant attention. It is about the energy you carry, the confidence you exude, and the value you place on yourself. When we talk about the role of self-worth and confidence in relationships, it's essential to understand that these qualities are not just abstract ideas. They are behaviors, habits, and mindsets that shape how others perceive and respond to us. Self-worth is the foundation on which all meaningful relationships are built. When you truly value yourself, you communicate it through your actions, your boundaries, and your choices. You no longer feel compelled to over-explain, over-apologize, or over-justify your presence or feelings. This sense of self-assurance is magnetic because it signals to others that you are complete on your own, that your happiness does not depend entirely on external validation. Confidence is an extension of this self-worth. It is not about arrogance or ego. It is about clarity and steadiness in your own identity. When you carry confidence, you are comfortable in your own skin, and others are drawn to that security because it reflects stability and emotional maturity. People are instinctively attracted to those who are grounded and sure of themselves because it creates a sense of safety and admiration. In the context of letting go or stepping back in relationships, confidence plays a critical role. When you stop chasing or over-investing emotionally, you are demonstrating that your attention and affection are not commodities to be earned through persistence or manipulation. Instead, they are gifts you offer from a place of choice and abundance. This shift in dynamic forces others to recognize your value because you are no longer readily available for consumption. Overcaring often masks insecurity. When someone constantly worries about whether they are loved or accepted, or when they feel they must chase approval, it reveals an underlying fear of not being enough. This fear drives behaviors that can push others away or create imbalance in the relationship. By cultivating self-worth and confidence, you break free from these patterns. You stop allowing insecurity to dictate your actions and begin to act from a place of strength. This has a profound impact not only on your own emotional health, but also on the dynamics of your relationships. Confidence also affects the way you handle challenges and setbacks. In any relationship, there will be moments of misunderstanding, disagreement, or distance. Someone who is secure in themselves does not react with panic, desperation, or clinginess. Instead, they maintain perspective, communicate clearly, and allow space for the other person to engage authentically. This level of emotional regulation is deeply attractive because it demonstrates that you are not dependent on constant reassurance or validation. It shows that you have the inner resources to navigate complexity with grace. Another critical aspect of self-worth is the ability to set and enforce boundaries. When you value yourself, you recognize what is acceptable and what is not in your interactions. You do not tolerate behavior that undermines your dignity, and you do not compromise your principles for temporary approval or attention. Boundaries are a form of respect for both yourself and the other person. They signal that you are serious about your emotional well-being, and that healthy relationships require balance and mutual effort. This creates a natural push-pull dynamic in relationships, where the other person must step up and engage with sincerity, rather than taking your attention for granted. Confidence also allows you to focus on your own life, interests, and growth. When you invest in yourself, pursue your goals, and cultivate hobbies and passions, you become a more rounded and interesting individual. This independent energy is inherently appealing because it communicates that you are not defined solely by the relationship, that you have a rich, fulfilling life on your own. People are drawn to others who have purpose, direction, and enthusiasm for life because it inspires curiosity and admiration. Importantly, confidence and self-worth help you recognize genuine interest versus superficial attention. When you stop over-investing emotionally, you become better at discerning who is truly committed and who is simply seeking convenience or validation. This clarity prevents wasted energy and emotional burnout, while also ensuring that your relationships are rooted in mutual respect and authentic connection. The psychology behind this is simple. Humans are wired to respond to competence, security, and emotional stability. When you demonstrate these qualities, you naturally attract others who are capable of engaging at a similar level, creating healthier, more balanced dynamics. Moreover, self-worth and confidence are contagious in subtle ways. When someone witnesses you valuing yourself and acting with clarity, it often prompts them to reflect on their own behavior, their own desires, and their own approach to relationships. They may begin to mirror your emotional intelligence, approach, and even the level of effort they are willing to invest. This is why stepping into your power and maintaining confidence is not about manipulation. It is about modeling the standard of treatment and respect you expect. Building confidence also involves letting go of the need for constant validation. When you no longer rely on someone else to confirm your worth, you free yourself from the anxiety and pressure that comes with overcaring. This freedom allows you to act authentically, communicate openly, and engage in relationships without fear of loss or rejection. It is within this space of authenticity and independence that attraction thrives. Furthermore, cultivating self-worth and confidence enhances your emotional resilience. Life and relationships are unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. When you are grounded in your own value, setbacks and disappointments do not destabilize you. You are able to respond with composure, patience, and clarity, rather than reacting impulsively or chasing approval. This resilience reinforces your attractiveness because it signals strength, reliability, and emotional intelligence. In essence, the role of self-worth and confidence in relationships is transformative. By valuing yourself, setting boundaries, pursuing your passions, and cultivating emotional stability, you shift the dynamics from desperation and dependence to mutual respect and genuine desire. You stop overcaring out of insecurity. Why, and instead engage from a place of clarity, choice, and personal power, allowing relationships to evolve naturally. Human behavior is deeply influenced by scarcity and desire, and understanding this psychology is essential when it comes to relationships and letting go. The concept is simple yet powerful. When something feels scarce or less accessible, it becomes inherently more desirable. This is not about manipulation or playing games. It is about recognizing natural human instincts and the way our minds respond to availability, attention, and perceived value. When someone realizes that your attention is no longer guaranteed, that you are not constantly seeking their approval or validating their every action, their brain begins to register a subtle shift. Suddenly, they are aware that what they once took for granted is now something they might lose. This awareness can ignite genuine curiosity, reflection, and even longing. It taps into a basic human drive to pursue what seems valuable or elusive, and this is where the psychology of letting go becomes transformative. Desire often grows in the absence of constant availability. When someone is always present, always attentive, always accessible, the brain adapts to this abundance, and the perceived value diminishes. The dynamic shifts when you create space, when you step back, and when you allow your own life to take priority over the act of chasing someone else's attention. Suddenly, your presence is no longer automatic. It requires effort, thought, and intentionality from the other person. This scarcity naturally increases engagement and prompts reflection on their part. Importantly, scarcity is not about playing mind games or manipulating emotions. It is about living authentically and maintaining boundaries that protect your energy and respect your self-worth, by prioritizing your own life, passions, and emotional stability. You naturally reduce the dependence on another person's actions for your happiness. In doing so, you create a natural consequence. They must reconsider how they approach you, how they value your presence, and whether they are willing to invest in a relationship that is not one-sided. The act of letting go also triggers self-reflection in the other person. When they notice your calm, confident detachment, they are prompted to examine their own behavior, desires, and intentions. They begin to question whether they have been taking your attention for granted, whether their interest was genuine, or whether they need to step up in order to earn your time and energy. This internal reflection often leads to more sincere, deliberate actions, because now they are operating from a place of recognition rather than assumption. Scarcity also reinforces boundaries. When you limit availability, it is not rejection. It is a clear statement that your time, attention, and emotional energy are valuable. This boundary setting is crucial for maintaining self-respect and avoiding emotional depletion. By creating this space, you allow desire to grow organically rather than forcing or manufacturing it through excessive attention or overinvestment. Furthermore, scarcity aligns with the principle of consequence. People respond to the outcomes of their actions. When someone realizes that overstepping boundaries or taking your presence for granted could result in distance or withdrawal, they are more likely to act with consideration, intentionality, and effort. This is not coercion, it is simply the natural human response to consequences and recognition of value. Another aspect to consider is that desire thrives on autonomy. When you step back and allow the other person to make the first move, to take initiative, and to demonstrate genuine interest, you invite authentic engagement. E-relationship shifts from one-sided pursuit to mutual investment, where actions reflect sincere desire rather than obligation or manipulation. The psychology of scarcity also interacts with emotional tension in subtle ways. Absence can create longing, but it is important that this absence is balanced with emotional stability and authenticity. Detachment should not be confused with emotional withdrawal that stems from anger, frustration, or passive aggression. The absence that triggers desire is calm, confident, and purposeful. It signals that your energy is independent, that your life is full, and that your attention is a gift rather than a given. Understanding these dynamics helps to cultivate patience. Desire takes time to develop, and letting go allows space for feelings to mature naturally. When you stop forcing interaction or chasing validation, you allow emotions to emerge in their own rhythm. This patience not only strengthens the connection, but also ensures that the attraction that develops is genuine and sustainable. Scarcity also enhances appreciation. When someone recognizes that your time and attention are not limitless, they begin to value moments with you more. They may engage more deeply, communicate more intentionally, and prioritize actions that reinforce the relationship. This deepened appreciation is a direct result of the psychological response to scarcity and perceived value. Furthermore, the principle of scarcity applies not only to attention, but also to emotional availability. By maintaining emotional balance and not over-investing in someone who is not reciprocating, you naturally encourage them to reflect on their own emotional engagement. They begin to recognize that meaningful connections require mutual effort and presence, which leads to more authentic interactions. Another important dimension is self-respect, creating scarcity in your sense communicates that you respect yourself and your own life. It reinforces the notion that your emotional energy is valuable, that you have standards, and that you will not settle for imbalance or neglect. This sense of self-respect is inherently attractive and draws people toward you in a way that superficial effort cannot. By understanding the psychology of scarcity and desire, you are able to shift the dynamics of relationships from one of dependence and chasing to one of mutual recognition and respect. It teaches that letting go is not about rejection or loss, but about creating conditions where genuine attraction and intentional connection can thrive. This approach allows for healthier, more balanced relationships, where desire is born from respect and curiosity rather than neediness and overinvestment. In practice, applying these principles requires awareness and intentionality. You must notice patterns of overcaring, recognize when your attention is being taken for granted, and consciously choose to step back. It involves trusting that your worth is not determined by someone else's pursuit, that your value remains intact regardless of their actions, and that natural attraction will emerge when you align with these truths. Letting go in relationships is a practical skill as much as it is a mindset, and it requires deliberate strategies that reinforce your independence while encouraging genuine connection. The first step in applying this principle is to shift your focus from the other person to yourself. This means actively investing in your passions, goals, and personal growth. When you are fully engaged in building a life that excites and fulfills you, your attention is no longer consumed by chasing someone else's validation or approval. This shift creates a natural magnetic energy because it signals that you are whole and content on your own. People are on to those who have purpose, direction, and enthusiasm for life because such individuals exude vitality and confidence. Pursuing your interests also provides concrete ways to redirect your energy and attention. Instead of analyzing every text, every social media interaction, or every sign of interest, you immerse yourself in activities that strengthen your skills, creativity, or social connections. This not only enriches your life, but also makes your presence more compelling. When you stop overinvesting emotionally, you free yourself to experience a more balanced and fulfilling existence, and the other person begins to notice this shift. Another key strategy is to limit communication intentionally. This does not mean ignoring someone or being passive-aggressive. It means creating space for both parties to engage consciously and meaningfully. By reducing the frequency of messages, calls, or check-ins, you allow the other person to step forward on their own. This absence encourages them to reflect on the relationship, recognize the value of your presence, and take initiative. In essence, you are creating a healthy push-pull dynamic where mutual effort becomes necessary for the relationship to thrive. Practicing mindfulness is another crucial component. Mindfulness helps you observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. When you notice anxiety, jealousy, or the urge to chase, you acknowledge it without acting impulsively. This practice strengthens emotional regulation, allowing you to respond rather than react. By cultivating awareness of your internal state, you create a stable foundation for interactions, making your presence calm, measured, and attractive. Self-compassion plays a complementary role. Letting go can trigger feelings of fear, inadequacy, or guilt, particularly if you are accustomed to overcaring. Practicing self-compassion involves treating yourself with understanding and kindness, recognizing that your worth is not defined by someone else's attention or actions. This mindset allows you to maintain boundaries and emotional detachment without self-criticism, reinforcing your independence and resilience. Maintaining a social and emotional life outside the relationship is another practical strategy. Surround yourself with supportive friends, engage in activities that bring joy, and cultivate connections that enrich your life. This not only reduces the tendency to obsess over the other person, but also highlights your multifaceted identity. When someone sees that you are thriving independently, it naturally piques their curiosity and admiration. Emotional detachment is reinforced by setting and upholding boundaries. Boundaries are not barriers meant to punish, they are statements of self-respect. They communicate what behaviors are acceptable and what compromises your well-being. By clearly defining your limits and enforcing them consistently, you create an environment where interactions are healthy, intentional, and reciprocal. Boundaries also prevent emotional depletion, ensuring that your energy is invested wisely and sustainably. Another practical element is to resist overanalyzing every action or word. It is tempting to dissect every interaction for hidden meaning or implied interest, but this behavior often stems from insecurity and fuels anxiety. By letting go of this compulsion, you free yourself to engage with clarity and presence. You begin to respond to genuine signals rather than imagined ones, which creates more authentic and meaningful interactions. Patience is integral to the process of letting go. Desire, reflection, and genuine interest take time to develop. When you step back and allow the other person to engage on their own, you create conditions for authentic attraction. Emerge naturally. Patience prevents impulsive behaviors that might undermine your boundaries or distort the dynamics, and it fosters a sense of calm confidence that others can sense intuitively. Developing resilience is also key. Letting go does not mean that the other person will immediately change or act as you hope. You must be prepared for the possibility of disappointment or delayed response. Resilience allows you to maintain your stability, continue prioritizing your own life, and avoid reverting to old patterns of overcaring. This steadiness enhances your attractiveness and ensures that your choices are guided by clarity rather than emotional reactivity. Visualization and mental rehearsal can support the practice of letting go. By imagining yourself responding with calm detachment and maintaining your boundaries in challenging scenarios, you train your mind to react intentionally rather than emotionally. This preparation strengthens your confidence, reduces anxiety, and reinforces the behaviors that naturally create attraction. Journaling and self-reflection are additional tools that deepen your understanding of patterns, triggers, and areas for growth. By writing about your experiences, thoughts, and emotions, you gain clarity on your own motivations and behaviors. This self-knowledge enables you to engage from a place of choice, rather than compulsion or fear, and aligns your actions with your values and goals. Integrating these practical strategies creates a holistic approach to letting go. Focusing on personal growth, limiting communication intentionally, practicing mindfulness and self-compassion, maintaining an independent social life, enforcing boundaries, exercising patience, cultivating resilience, and engaging in self-reflection all work together to strengthen your emotional autonomy. This autonomy shifts the relationship dynamic naturally. Engage the other person to reflect on their behavior, recognize your value, and act with genuine intention. Over time, these strategies transform not only the way others perceive you, but also the way you experience relationships. They cultivate a sense of calm confidence, authenticity, and emotional stability that is inherently attractive. The energy you radiate becomes magnetic, not because of games or manipulation, but because it reflects a person who is whole, self-respecting, and fully engaged in life. By consistently applying these principles, you allow desire and attraction to emerge organically, creating the conditions for healthier, more balanced, and mutually fulfilling relationships.